A couple of days ago, I uploaded a theory video on the channel about the Light of Alfheim relating to the topic of souls. And by far, the comment I received the most was regarding an old fan theory that says that Faye's soul went inside the Leviathan Axe after she died. Now, I know you may find this hard to believe, but originally, the Light of Alfheim video was going to be about this old Faye theory. But ultimately I dropped it because I thought most fans had forgotten about it and wouldn't really understand what I was trying to say. But clearly, I was very wrong. So that's why I decided to make this video revisiting this old theory and explain why at the moment it's not very clear if it's still canon. You see, this idea of Faye's soul being inside the Leviathan Axe didn't come out of nowhere. A month after the release of God of War 2018, a YouTuber named Philip Chu Joy visited Santa Monica Studios. Here, he was allowed to record a video of the studio's lobby as well as meet some very important people who work there. One of those kind of important people was Cory Barlog. Now, I'm not exactly sure who told him this, but in a Twitter post he shared with the fanbase that someone from the studio told him that the reason the Leviathan Axe always returns to Kratos is because within it there's someone's spirit from Kratos' past. But as you can see, nowhere in this post does he say that the spirit is Faye. But fans naturally thought it was Faye's because she's someone from Kratos' past, and more importantly, she was also the previous owner of the Leviathan Axe. You could say that the soul he's referring to was Athena's or Calliope's, but you would have to do a lot of mental gymnastics to prove either one of those theories. In this case, it's much better to go with the most likely answer and say that it was Faye's soul. Now, soon after we learned about this post, the entire God of War fandom was excited to see how Santa Monica would implement this part of the lore in the story for the sequel. But as I'm sure you know, at some point during the development of the game, Santa Monica decided to end the Norse saga in 2 games instead of doing a traditional trilogy. So naturally, some things from the story were left out to make room for some other stuff. And I'm sure one of the first things that got cut was this hint that Faye's soul was inside the axe, since it wasn't even hinted at in the main game. But this has left the God of War community with a very interesting question. Despite not getting any confirmation of this theory in God of War Ragnarok, could it still be considered canon? I ask this because it seems that either Santa Monica changed this piece of lore completely, or it has started to hint at it with God of War Ragnarok and it will eventually come back. This is because from the very start of God of War Ragnarok, we see something similar happen. Part of Fenrir's soul gets trapped inside Atreus' knife. Now, I'm not exactly sure what to make of this scene in regards to what Philip said about the axe. One possibility is that Faye's soul being inside the axe isn't considered canon anymore. Instead, Santa Monica took the core idea and decided to do the Fenrir subplot instead. Or it could be that Santa Monica saw that they didn't have enough time to address it in God of War Ragnarok and decided to leave it for the future, just like the mystery of who blew the horn. I come to this other conclusion because the writers have now given Atreus the ability to manipulate souls. He did it with Fenrir, Jormungandr, and Odin. Are you telling me that he's not going to use his ability ever again in the series? I doubt that very much. Chances are that he will need to use his ability in the future. And if Faye's soul is inside the axe, Atreus now has the means to bring it out if he needs to. So which one is it? Is it no longer canon? Or is Santa Monica simply setting it up for the future? Choosing one of these options is very difficult because it all depends on how early in the development of the Norse saga this idea was conceived. If this idea was conceived after God of War 2018 was released, I say that it will most likely never return. But if they came up with this piece of lore during the development of God of War 2018, I say that it's very likely that it will return in some way like the horn will. And once again we come to a problem because there's evidence for both possibilities. Something that points to this piece of lore being created after God of War 2018 was released is Brok and Sindri. As you know, Brok and Sindri created the Leviathan Axe. But if Philip is right and the reason the axe returned to Kratos is due to Faye's soul being inside the axe, then we can say Brok and Sindri couldn't have known that their axe had this ability. And if that's the case, why is it that neither Brok and Sindri approached Kratos to ask him how he was able to do that? Instead, they acted as if nothing was out of the ordinary. To me, this shows that Faye's soul being inside the axe was a story development that was conceived after God of War 2018 was released. Otherwise, they would have left a hint similar to the horn where Brok or Sindri become visibly perplexed at how the axe can do that now.
What? Hey!
But then again, there's something in God of War 2018 that makes me think that Santa Monica has always thought of Faye's soul being inside the axe. Well, actually 2. One of them happens after the first Baldur fight. Kratos, very out of character, starts talking to himself out loud. This is out of character, but understandable as this is the only way to communicate to the player what Kratos was thinking at the moment. But what fans have found interesting is that soon after Kratos calls out to Faye, the axe returns.
Faye, what do I do?
This is enough proof for a lot of fans to say that Faye's soul is indeed inside the axe. At the very least, it's a plausible interpretation of the scene. But in my opinion, there's something else in the game that tells me that Santa Monica has been thinking about Faye's soul being inside the axe for a very long time. I'm talking about that Alfheim moment. No, not this one, but the moment we didn't see. The day and a half that Atreus was by himself.
Boy, I was gone only... moments.
We're not exactly sure how Atreus was able to survive by himself an entire day. Sure, he gave him the axe, but both Atreus and the axe are about the same size. There's no way that Atreus was able to wield the axe the same way his dad did. On top of that, Atreus at that time was very sick. Whenever he would get angry, he would start to cough, and if this persisted, he would eventually pass out. And what do we see when Kratos returns from the light?
You've been gone a long time!
My theory is that when Kratos went inside the light, Atreus was able to fight off a couple of dark elves. But this eventually led to more rage, which would have made him pass out. But after that, how do you think he was able to survive? Well, if Faye's soul was inside the axe, it would have noticed that her son was in danger. So while her son was taking a nap, the axe would have gone to town with all of the dark elves. We know that this concept of weapons having a will to fight isn't too out of the ordinary in the Norse saga. Thor's hammer at times seems to be moving on its own, and even more clearly it's Freyr's sword Ingrid. When taking these two weapons into account, it's not very hard to imagine the Leviathan Axe killing dark elves by itself. And this could only be done if Faye's soul was inside the axe. So as you can see, I lean more in the direction of thinking that eventually Santa Monica will come out and say that Faye's soul is indeed inside the axe. In all of those moments of Atreus manipulating other people's souls, it's just a setup for whenever he does it to the axe. But hold on a second. How will Atreus get his hands on the axe again? I don't know when this will happen, but I'm sure the Leviathan Axe won't be Kratos' weapon forever. At some point, I think Atreus will inherit the weapon. How do I know this? Well, the name Leviathan is a big giveaway, because in Norse mythology, Loki has a weapon with a very interesting name, Leviathan. I know the Lost Pages podcast says that the name Leviathan was inspired by Jormungandr, but there's no way Santa Monica didn't see this name while doing research for the Norse saga. They have always wanted Atreus to be the next protagonist, and the name Leviathan was probably a hint to this future. Kratos didn't give him the axe at the end of God of War Ragnarok, but this doesn't mean he'll never do so. And when he does, Atreus will be equipped with the ability to extract souls. And if his mother is inside the axe, I'm sure the writers will find a reason to bring her out. Which means that my Alfheim theory could still be correct. And you have no reason not to watch it. Go ahead. I'll wait. Just click on this link. Did you do it? Oh, come on! Now, as always, I want to give a big thanks to all of my members for supporting the channel monthly. Sometimes I can't believe I have such awesome fans who are willing to support the channel for this long. I know I say this a lot, but it is thanks to you guys that this channel is still going. So once again, thank you. I would also like to thank everyone who likes and shares my videos. I know it doesn't seem like much, but trust me, it really does help. And with that said, thanks for watching. And remember, go forth in the name of Olympus.